or for L. I'm yelling no more talking, unless it's the truth. You in that bullshit walking when I'm in.
Yeah, welcome back to another edition of E.D.I. Mean's Talk My Truth. Man, I appreciate y'all tapping in like y'all doing. As usual, we're growing, man, we're growing. And I gotta give a special shout out to a couple of people real quick. First of all, shout out to my guy, Rock, Helter Skelter, you know, the whole boot camp family. Sent me some positive encouragement the other day, showing support to the channel. Y'all make sure y'all support his channel as well. He's dropping some dope content. Also, shout out to the Smith & Wesson, man. Our brothers, man. Major love for them. Congrats on the new album that they just dropped. Somebody sent me a clip the other day of them speaking, bigging us up on the Drink Champ show. So
right, Outlaws or Dog Pound?
Cold, man.
Dog Pound. Corrupt is one of the greatest rappers to ever live.
That's a great fact.
Outlaws is family. That's personal.
No, shout out to Outlaws.
Big up to the Outlaws, please.
Yeah, salute to the Outlaws, man. Young Noble, E.D.I. man.
Yeah, big up to all of the Outlaws.
I appreciate that. Salute to all the brothers out there. Had a great time down in Miami this last week. Me and H. Ryder got a project wrapping up right now. New single on the way. Make sure y'all support that Ask About Me. That's out and about all over the place.
Highly motivated, affiliated with the greatest. My latest campaign got niggas waiting to get me some seats.
The single drops next week. The video was already out. This show right now is a special one for me because it gives me the opportunity to give flowers. And that's something I'm gonna start doing via my platform, is giving flowers out there. I did a song a few years ago called Roses, and it was inspired by the deaths of course, Kobe Bean Bryant and Nipsey Hussle.
Give me my roses while I'm here. Don't wait till I'm gone to say you care.
And the outpouring of love that came post their deaths, and it had me thinking like, yeah, it's time for us to start giving these flowers out to people while they still here. Now, this particular guy I'm gonna talk about, he's no longer with us, unfortunately, but he still deserves his flowers. And I'm talking about Johnny J, man. Johnny J, who did a lot of classic records with Tupac and the Outlaws. Most of y'all know who I'm talking about. But I don't feel like Johnny J is brought up when we talk about the best producers, and most notably the best producers that Pac worked with. Pac worked with some great producers. Of course, we know about Dr. Dre, Daz, Easy Mo B, you know, Mike Mosley out of the Bay. Man, the list goes on and on. But him and Johnny J's combination was very prolific. They did a lot of classic records, man. And take, for example, Pour Out a Little Liquor. It's one of the first records Johnny J and Pac got together. A little history on how Pac and Johnny J got together. Got to give it up to Big Syke, rest in peace, who's no longer with us. Johnny J was working with Big Syke first. And then Syke told Pac, like, yo, I got a producer you need to check out. And Pac was always looking for production and looking to step his production up. And when he got with Johnny J, I don't personally know if he knew how much work they would end up doing, but I do know the pace that Pac worked at. Johnny J was one of those producers that can keep up with Pac. He worked primarily with the SB-1200, and a lot of Johnny J's beats were loops. You know what I mean? And Pac loved rapping over samples, and you know, he can knock those out relatively quickly, put them to the side, mix them later. And that was pretty much the genesis of Tupac and Johnny J's working relationship. Johnny J would find a loop, play some beats for Pac, Pac would knock those down. They would go back to it later and mix it. Then, as the relationship progressed, Pac started actually bringing Johnny J records to sample, records that he wanted to rap over. And Johnny J would take those records that Pac suggested, loop those up. Sometimes they kept the sample in. Most of the time they kept the sample in. A lot of time, the sample was taken out. One of my favorite records that Johnny J and Pac did together, Death Around the Corner. Wow.
I see death around the corner, gotta stay high while I survive.
Death Around the Corner is one of my favorite Tupac tracks, period. But the beat, crazy. You know, we talk about digging in the crates, man. Johnny J dug in the crates to find that. If you know a little bit about Johnny J's history, you know that he was adopted by a black family and primarily grew up amongst other black people, even though he was Mexican by origin. And so I feel like, you know, that was the gateway to Johnny J sampling these records. You go back to Pour Out a Little Liquor. He sampled the OJs. How black is that? You don't get no more blacker than the OJs, y'all. Johnny J had to be growing up around other black people to even have an ear for that. Johnny J was also a drummer. One of the things that was very peculiar about Johnny J, when you work with him in the studio, he would do his drums beatboxing first and beating on his chest like. You would see Johnny J doing this. And doing stuff like that before he actually did the drums in the studio. And me being a producer in my head and seeing that as a future for me when I was a young dude, I would always ask Johnny J questions like, how did you do that? What made you do that? And why did you take the bass line out here? And why did you decide to loop this particular sample? Whatever questions I had, Johnny J was always very generous and very giving to me. And I learned a lot about production from Johnny J. I learned a lot about how your drums should sound. Johnny J would tell me, try to keep your drums as natural as possible. Try to keep your drums as close to what an actual drummer would do. And, you know, a lot of producers, especially in the hip hop world, they come up with these amazing drum patterns, but they're not really drum patterns that a drummer would do. And Johnny J tried to keep his drums as natural as possible. And you can hear, when you listen to his production, you can hear that. I think he was a drummer also by, you know, in high school or whatever. And that transferred over to him being a producer. Another one of my favorite Johnny J tracks, man, Picture Me Rolling.
Picture me rolling in my 500 Benz. I got no love for these chickens. There's no need to be friends.
Picture Me Rolling the drums kind of sound similar to Death Around the Corner, but it's a completely different loop, man. Great record, man. Another one, All Eyes on Me. Another classic one. You know, Pac and Nas both did that sample around the same time, man. Y'all hit the comments up and tell me what's your favorite record as far as out of Picture Me Rolling and the Nas song that Nas had the same sample. And a little trivia, y'all let me know what record that was sampled. Hit up the comments and let me know, man. So like I said, man, this whole segment is just about showing love to Johnny J. Unfortunately, towards, really in the middle of our time at Death Row, Johnny J decided to fall back, and it was due to some business dealings between him and Death Row. Johnny J probably felt like he was owed money and he should have been paid, or whatever the case may be. He left, and that forced us to find production in different places, and that led to a lot of our music post Johnny J sounding the way it sounded. And Unfortunately for us, we was right in the middle of starting our project. A lot of those tracks ended up coming out on the Still I Rise album anyway. Some of my favorite records on the Still I Rise album, of course, Secrets of War. Johnny J did the original and the remix. Me and him worked on that in the wee hours of the morning one night. Put that together when we was working on the Still I Rise project.
Wartime, I see that yours are mine. Outlaws be on the grind, the mission to shine.
I love both versions. Of course, the original version had the Willie Hutch sample in it. Very dope drums. You know, the original featured people like Gonzo, Rest in Peace, and Corrupt, and Fatal. And the remix was strong too. You either ride with us or collide with us. That was a strong one too. And Johnny J, you know, took the sample out and played everything that you hear, man. So again, props to Johnny J. Should be mentioned more, in my opinion, when we're talking about some of the greatest producers that Pac worked with and some of the greatest producers, period, in hip-hop history. Rest in peace to Johnny J. Salute. Hey, look, this particular episode was brought to you by the Outlaw Pack, man. You know what it is. Y'all support the Outlaw Pack out there. Dope shirts, dope sweaters. Tap in with them, man. Follow them on Instagram. Stay tapped in with EDI Mean TV.
Let's get it. Let me talk my truth. You just want the facts. I'ma talk